Good morning. Coming to you with wind-whipped hair and a wind-whipped face. It is day 240, and let me show you where I am. Look at this. Oh my gosh. I was just on the upper deck where I'm catching the full force of the wind, but now I'm on the lower deck where I'm not sure we're going to make it on these kayaks today with this chop, but that's okay. Look at this. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous. How blessed am I to have a beautiful close friend who has property like this and is such a generous hostess. There's the house and the property behind me. Anyway, can't even put it into words. It's been an amazing, nourishing weekend, and we need that. Oh gosh, we all need that in our lives. Hey, good morning, and we're going to talk about John chapter 6 this morning. Now, John goes there. He goes like deep with the metaphor, because Jesus also does, and sometimes it's hard to wrap our minds around. So it's John chapter 6 starts off with the feeding of the 5,000, the miracle. A lot of us know this, the loaves and the fishes. But then it has a little after that story. I'm not going to focus on that one, but right after that, the disciples decide to cross the sea of Tiberias or Galilee. They're going to Capernaum. Jesus, after all of this, the miracle and feeding the 5,000, he gets overwhelmed by everybody wanting to kind of go, they're so overwhelmed. They want to make him king, is what John says. And he's like, bye, see ya. And he withdraws. And the disciples are waiting for him to return, and it's getting dark, and they're like, oh, let's just go. He'll catch up with us later. And so they start off on their boat, and they're about halfway through. It says they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, and I looked it up, and this particular body of water, well, at least now, we don't know for sure if it was the same back then, but it's about 8 miles wide. So they were about halfway through, and a large gale of wind came through. And then it says they saw, and the waves were big. Then they saw Jesus walking on water. Whew, that's pretty cool. But they became terrified. It says they became terrified in my translation. But then it kind of just skips to the end and says, and then they wanted him to get in their boat. It never says that he actually got in the boat. It just says, and suddenly they were on the other side. They were on their shore at their destination. I thought, well, that's kind of, it like literally, it's a few sentences that describe this whole thing. Obviously, when we put ourselves actually in that situation, there's probably a lot more to the story. And this is where, and then after this, Jesus goes into this very long monologue talking to people about feeding on his body, eating his flesh, and drinking his blood. And he loses a lot of people in this. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. You want us to be cannibals? Like, what's happening here? How is this? But when I go back even to this setup of the metaphor, and again, John is all about metaphor, and Jesus is too. That's what parables are. We're supposed to read into the meaning behind the meaning, and the analogies. But when we're focused on Jesus, we are nourishing ourselves even in the midst of a storm. We're able to, I called today focus. Let's back up a minute. Today is focus. And focusing on the right or the more nourishing, let's just use the word nourishing. When we focus on the things that nourish us, the rest of what's going on seems to kind of take care of itself. And before we know it, we're where we need to be and how we need to be and doing what we need to be. And we don't have to, I don't know, a lot of it doesn't even happen in our own effort. And that is part of why Jesus says, hey, when you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you're going to be nourished with my power, my spirit. Hey, good morning, Beth. We're missing you. And we get something that we can't get on our own. We are being nourished in a way that food can't nourish us. Material things can't nourish us. Finding our identity in being somebody's so-and-so, having a title and people thinking of us as so-and-so. Those things can feel good, but they don't nourish us the way that focusing on Jesus, the bigger picture. Last night we were out on this same dock and we had kind of clear skies, and I was just looking at the stars, and I was just, wow, Jesus looked at these same stars and these same skies that have been here since for thousands of years, and other people that have looked at it, and I'm just here for a moment. And yet when I focus on Jesus and when I feed on the truth, his word, allow my spirit to be nourished by big spirit, by God, my whole nervous system calms down. Time just seems to take on a new dimension, a new experience of time, maybe eternal. And even when Jesus is talking about eating his body, his flesh, the bread, he says you have eternal life. It's not like off in the distance and for another time. It is like it's here and now. And I think that's part of what the disciples even experienced on the water. It's like they were focused on Jesus, and without even realizing it, they were on the shore. They got where they needed to be. They got through the storm. They were focused on Jesus and the miracle of life and the here and the now. And that's how we can, because all we ever have is now. And when we focus on that and we allow ourselves to be nourished, like our bodies, so we're like a whole intelligent system. You guys have heard me say this. There's a lot of scientists that talk about this too. We have a brain, we have a nervous system, we have skin, we have bone, and all these parts of us speak their own language, and even and maybe even they even also have their own nourishment system, the way that they need to be fed. Our bodies need to move. Our blood, and our limbs, they're made for movement. We don't feel alive when we're sedentary. Our, digestive system, and we need actual food to nourish and give ourselves energy. All of this is an exchange of information with the seemingly outside world. And we even do that with each other. We exchange, we have limbic resonance with each other, like we feel love and all of these emotions. Those are not tangible things. And so we have to allow ourselves and our minds to go, expand, and to think of things in new ways, and even nourish our spirits with communing with nature is a great way to really, the expansiveness of the universe. We can get so focused in, like the disciples were like, oh my gosh, it's getting late. We got to get in our boat. And they were so focused on their immediate, and their future. They were caught up. Well, okay, we've got to do this. We're going to go. And Jesus meets them in the middle of all of that and before they know, and then redirects their focus. They go with their focus, they go with Jesus, and then they're where they need to be suddenly, seemingly without any effort. And I think that's what Jesus really wants us to focus on, and focus on him and the truth, so that we can live this fully divine or spirit-led or higher life, and not stay so stuck in, we're so limited by our senses, if we allow ourselves to be. And at the end of this, after all of the metaphorical, eat me, drink my blood, and these people are probably like, is he a vampire? I don't know. But he loses a lot of disciples. At the end of John chapter 6, it says, hey, it's been nice knowing you, but this is too weird for me. Can't deal. My mind cannot process. I can't let it go there. I don't know what you're saying. I think you're a pretty good guy. But even after they saw the miracle, they hear the miracles and see the miracles of the feedings, they're like, yeah, I gotta go. Bye, Jesus. And Jesus is fine with that. He's like, okay, the Father will only give me the people that he's giving me. And those are the people that are willing to be open. Like, they can see beyond what they see. They can listen and hear beyond what they're hearing. They allow truth to enter them and their spirits, their heart, whatever it is that we fully are and that we fully can be in an expanded, eternal version. We can only access that if we let go and believe the unbelievable, and don't let our senses and our logic try to limit what we're hearing and seeing. And so he looks at the 12 and he says, are you guys with me? He goes, yeah, of course we are. You are. You're the way. Your words are the truth, the life, eternity. And he's like, great, even though I know one of you is the devil. And then it kind of ends, this series of stories in John chapter 6. But what I was getting out of it, when I focus on the truth of who I am, and it's a bigger part of eternity, that's some big stuff. Then I can get out of myself and even out of doubt, out of being caught up in the moment of my physical circumstances, maybe what other people think, and see them in a different way, see myself in a different way, and then interact more the way Jesus would through me, because I'm letting go of myself and my limitations. You hear a lot of people say less of me and more of Jesus. And that's sort of a Christianese. And even yesterday I was breaking down, and there's an acronym for joy, that is Jesus over you. And I think a lot of people do that as a reminder to themselves. When Jesus is over me and take very personally, then, or, that's that whole less of me, more of Jesus. But it's more of who Jesus role modeled us to be. And I thought what I'm going to experiment with today and focus on is literally, I'm going to imagine whatever I think Jesus looks like sitting and hovering over every person. Do a little experiment of my focus. And if I literally see Jesus over every person, Jesus over you, I see Jesus over you on the screen, and Jesus over everyone I interact with. Now I'm human, so I'm probably going to forget it at least 50 times today. But if I even remember 10 times today, it might change my experience and even how I interact with people. If I'm focusing on Jesus versus maybe something that normally my Felecia self, my human self, would think, what is wrong with you? Why would you say that? But if I see Jesus over, then I'm like, oh yeah. Then I'm not caught up in that. And then my human, maybe I can get out of my just simple human self and tap into that eternal self. This stuff is hard to talk about. I don't know that we have all the language. I don't even think Jesus did, which is why he had to use such extreme metaphors to sort of like drive the point home. And anyway, so if you're not tracking with me, that's okay. If people couldn't even track with Jesus, like, I'm not too worried about that. It's something I'm trying to fully understand myself. The scriptures are so dense and so multi-layered. You really got to sit with them. And that's what I believe when he talks about eating his flesh and drinking his blood. It's sitting with the word and kind of chewing on it, and then digesting it, letting it enter you and let it go throughout, and let your body, your whole self, sort of then take the different parts of it and be nourished by it, and then be able to experience life in a different, new, eternal way. All right. I'm going to go in and see my friends because I've only got a few hours left here. And heading back to Kentucky. And anyway, I'm so nourished. Even though I'm behind on sleep and all of those other things, I'm just so spirit-filled and nourished by love and community and communion and fellowship. So I wish all of you a great day wherever you are. And rise and shine. Together, we can just help each other. Help each other, give each other a hand, and say, rise up, and let's go shine. So the world, we can, one person at a time, like, just help somebody feel better today. All right, bye.